Give people a couple of minutes because it's on the other side of the universe from the actual table, so, you know.
I know, it was like a scavenger hunt getting here. I'm like, where's the arrow?
I figured Chris would have had one of his team members like standing out here showing people, hey, this is where the lectures are down here, so everybody actually knows where to go.
I saw the one arrow.
What's that?
I saw the one arrow.
Yeah.
Hey, at least they put you in the room with all the spooky pictures.
Right?
Well, I like spooky pictures.
I know, it's awesome.
Oh, oh my God, I didn't see the one with all the
the choir
the ladies.
singers?
Yeah, the choir picture. Okay, now I got like 1,000 eyes on me. I'm good. All right. How you doing?
Hey, Jeremy, how are you?
Good, good. Don't mind me, it's my first time doing this, so I apologize. Getting the nerves out of the system today.
Well, you talk fine in small groups.
What's that?
I said you do fine in small groups. This is a small group.
It's all good, you know? It's a lot of fun. I'm just...
Protect our spirits.
Hi. Hello.
Just pretend we're spirits.
We're spirits. Everybody's a spirit. We're just in physical form still, so it's cool. You know? Just gonna give them a couple minutes to get back, and we'll be good to start.
That one's kind of creepy too.
I can move
What's
it.
that?
Yeah, no, you're fine. I'm good.
Oh, the sports team, that's kind of interesting. What are these, all turn of the century type pictures?
I don't know, but they're all bad. I think they lost.
Good at recording this, me being a fidgeting mess. Cause
I am, as a matter of fact.
Thank
This is your blooper wheel?
What?
This is your blooper wheel?
Oh, good. I get a blooper wheel too. This is sweet. Okay, I'm gonna walk into this table, so I'm about to move this thing out of the way. Sorry, if I sit still, I'm gonna go crazy. So, sweet. Well, I want to say first, thank you all for coming out here and watching the lecture today. It's my first time doing this, so please, I stuttered a little bit, but I apologize for that. My name is Jeremy Cotter. I've been working in the paranormal field alongside my wife for about 10 years now or so with very many different kinds of groups, and I wanted to come up here today and talk a little bit about my journey starting off as one of the biggest skeptics you could possibly imagine. My wife used to watch all the TV shows, and I used to watch, oh, this is all a bunch of BS. No, this is real. They're making things move with strings and whatnot. So one time she wanted to go to an investigation, and she asked me to come along. We were at the S.K. Pierce Haunted Mansion in Gardner, Massachusetts. Beautiful place. I'm like, fine, I'll go. I'm not gonna really like it, but we'll give it a shot. So what happened is we were doing a evening tour of the house before the actual investigation, and I go into a place they call the nursery. They had like a crib and a bed in there, and all of a sudden this shadow mask comes out from the corner of the room. It blocked out the window, the street light and everything, and then dissipated about 5 seconds later. I'm like, what was that? So I walked over, looked behind the mirror to see if there was a trigger or if there was a camera. Because of my years in entertainment, I was like, well, they have to have possibly put something in here to make this happen. And then I couldn't explain it, and I was like, oh my God. So I went and found my wife, and I'm like, what is all of this? I'm like, what was that? And I explained it, and then I was like, well, that didn't happen. And I absorbed it a little bit, but I still had my doubts. And I think the next time we traveled, we went to the Murdoch Whitney Mansion in Winchton, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And I had some experiences of hearing voices where there wasn't anybody there, and I'm like, is this really happening? And then I started to, a couple of years later, we were working with different groups. I had a friend of mine who ran the 555 Paranormal group out of New Hampshire, and we worked with them, and I started noticing that my sensitivities were getting stronger and stronger on each investigation that we were doing. And it was weird because I wasn't sure how to feel about it at first. It was like I could hear a voice, or I would see the shadows going from room to room, and I couldn't quite understand what it was about. So after a while, I wanted to understand being sensitive. And I was talking to a couple of psychic friends of mine, and they were like, well, yeah, you're building up your becoming more in tune to the paranormal universe around you, and it's good to embrace these things. And after a while, it started getting stronger and stronger, so I could actually see people's spirit guides. Like I could actually see like details, facial details, male or female, whether they were maternal or paternal, depending on who was coming through for a particular individual. Whether we were sitting in groups for spirit circles or mass readings and stuff like that, I would actually see people's spirit guides pop up with them in the rooms. They weren't my gallery, so I would just sit there and watch, but they were still there. And I just found it was an amazing thing, because I never thought that I would actually be able to see this stuff. And to me, I really have started to embrace the paranormal universe, and we've been to many, many locations with a lot of different great people, like James Anito's. We've done investigations with him, and Carl Johnson. We've done work with, we've gone to investigations that have had like celebrities at them as well, but I'm more into like working with people that I know, like people that I've built friendships with over the years. My friend Russ Stiver, who couldn't be here today, that's why I'm filling in his spot at the lecture. And the more heightened I got, the more I realized that maybe it was a little bit more than just being regular sensitive. And my wife and I, we were at the house on Round Top Hill, the Conjuring House. One night we were with Brandy Wells, and we were doing introductions, and I had questioned whether or not I had been working at a certain level, and she told me that night, she said, you have to say the words, and I'm like, what words are those? She goes, that you're clairvoyant. Because I can hear them, I can see them, I can get certain smells, like if the spirit had smoked a cigar, I could smell the cigar in the room, or a woman's perfume would come wafting into a room that just would have nothing in it at all. And it was eye-opening, I would say, because I wasn't quite open yet for that, but it felt good to know that somebody could verify for me what I've been feeling all this time, where being in tune at a high level comes with a big price, because I feel like my emotional roller coaster has gone out of control so many times. Ups and downs have been so horrible, and I've relied on even being able to communicate with my mother, who's been passed for a long time now, and she's been a really big support system for me going into locations that have a little bit darker energy than normal, like the Rolling Hills Asylum that we've been to before. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure everything out, because I've been enjoying the last 10 years of everything now moving forward, and getting a chance to do this is probably as nerve-wracking as the first time I've ever seen a spirit come through a wall. To be honest with you, I really appreciate. Sorry.
Can I ask you, Jeremy?
Please.
When you're walking down the street, do you see spirits?
If I'm tuned in,
Yeah.
yes. There was for a long time that my wife can tell you that I couldn't shut it off.
Yeah.
And I would walk by graveyards and see spirits like wandering through the graveyards. And I realized that they're not always there, but some spirits are still there because they haven't found their way to the other side yet. And I went through an emotion, I've been through some of this horrible emotional baggage.
Because you got like a foot
You
in
know.
both worlds.
Yeah, and sometimes the dreams would be really horrendously vivid, where I could actually see like what I thought was the veil, and I'd have people like telling me to come through to the other side. I'm like, no, I'm not ready to leave yet. I'm gonna stay here where it's important. And I'll share one of a dark attachment that I actually had got one time that my friend Sam Beltrusis had helped me get rid of. We had done an event at the Silver
Fountain Inn.
Inn up in New Hampshire. We went there for a small investigation, and I didn't think anything of it. And when I came home, I wasn't in my right mind. I was like in tears. I was like felt depressed and sobbing and sad for a while. And I was talking to Sam one night, because I guess I let out like a spiritual cry, like I didn't realize I like screamed in my head, and he contacted me and he said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I don't think so. He goes, I think you have an attachment. And it was a woman who had gotten to liking me at the Silver Fountain Inn. I decided to come home with me because she was like, oh, well, I wonder what his life is like. But she was stuck to me, like almost like it felt like a vampire, but not quite. It wasn't a negative energy as far as she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just attached and she wouldn't let go. And it was like a heavy weight. So we had to do a ceremony where I put the energy into a black stone and I threw it in the water and actually saw the energy come up out of the water. And I felt so good after that. I'll be honest with you, it was amazing. But I also wanted to talk about my experiences with channeling, which I didn't realize I had that ability until a couple of years ago. The very first time that I had actually channeled an energy was at the Murdoch Whitney Mansion. We were on the second floor, I believe. It was one of the bedrooms off to the side. I sat in the chair. We were doing an investigation. I had my dowsing rods because I'm old school dowsing rods and pendulums. I'm not quite with the gadgets and gizmos. It's not my particular thing. And all of a sudden, I guess I put them down. And I went into an alternate reality where I saw myself in a hotel corridor with doors on both sides. And I'm trying to open the doors and they were locked. And I didn't know what was going on. And I got down to the door. I opened up the door. I come through. And I came to. I'm like, what happened? And Jean goes, you've been talking to me for the last 10 minutes. But it wasn't me. Apparently, one of the spirits in there had used my body as a conduit and talked to my wife, who he thought was his long-lost lover that he hadn't seen in about 150 years because he came from 1860 or 1840 or something along those lines. And he's like, he wanted to find out why she where she was, and he was thinking about keeping my body for himself so he could, but thankfully I came back from it, and that was the very first time that I truly channeled. And it was really weird because I went into an alternate state of reality and I had no idea. I guess my voice was lower and my mannerisms were different and I was more laid back and everything. And she has audio, but I've never heard it. Please.
So every time you channel, do you do that hallway thing? Or is it
Actually, no.
different every
My
time?
next experience,
Okay.
I can actually explain.
Sorry.
I was on the USS Salem, and we were in the CPO mess hall down on the lower deck, and we were in a group. We were there with an investigation, and Sam was also there as well, and he was doing the Estes method with the headphones and that thing. And all of a sudden, I said to him, I go, Sam, there's a spirit over your back. It stopped because it couldn't get his attention. It looked at me, shot across the table, and hit me in the chest and took me over. And I guess I bowled over and I was like cackling like the Joker. A friend of mine had actually taken audio clip. I wish I'd actually found it on my phone, but you can actually hear me just cackling and Gene and one of the members of the GPPA had to pull me out and down the hallway to get it out of my system. That particular instance, when I was actually channeling, I felt like I was in a well, like it's like one of those long wells, and I was looking up. You could see shadows up on the top, and you could hear voices, but they were really faint. And somehow, when I was able to crawl out of the hole that I was stuck in, that's when I came out of it. But I have no recollection of the conversation that went on. People were there. There was a room full of people that witnessed that one. I mean, it seems like every time that it had happened, it was a bigger room. The most intense one was on the Salem, probably, less than a year later. James and Carl Johnson were doing a big investigation, and James asked me to come down, and he would use me as a conduit to talk to the higher powered entities that are on the ship. And I was like, okay, because I trust that they have my back and nothing's gonna happen to me. So I showed up. We were in the big mess hall. It can fit like 40 people or something like that. It was a full-size group of people. And I was there. My friend Jason was sitting on the right-hand side of me. My wife was on the left. And all of a sudden, this next level energy that we thought was even possible, elemental, used me as the energy was so intense that I almost knocked him out of his chair just by the energy that was surging through me into the table. And the table was vibrating. And I don't remember any of that, unfortunately, but that was a well again, so I don't know if it's the style of energy or where you are. And I've had a couple of different ones where the hallway has happened once or twice and the well has happened. I don't know if it's like I said, I don't know if it's a negative energy, or if you're on a ship and it's a water energy, like triggers a water style thing, and a house triggers like the different visuals. I haven't done anything in a graveyard because I haven't figured out what kind of energy could happen there. But basically, James was there. He knows the night that I channeled on the USS Salem.
I know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
No, yeah, it was a very hectic night for sure.
Yeah, that was a lot of energy.
Yes, it was.
I almost knocked Jason out of
And
his chair.
it was my fault, guys. I don't know if he told you that. It was my fault. Well, we did ask you, right? And
It was all good. You had my back. I know you did,
for
so
sure.
it was good. But all of this brings me to the fact that I believe in everybody should have all their personal experiences, but embrace it. Don't discount it. Don't throw it away. Lately, I've decided to embrace everything that's happened to me in my paranormal journey, and not just toss it aside. I don't care if somebody doesn't want to believe me. I know what I've been through, and I feel it. I have felt the pain. I have felt the agony. Which I'm going to bring up something that has happened recently. I just started working at a hospital. I work in the nutrition delivering food to people's rooms, and filling kitchenettes and stuff. It's a basic job. So my very first encounter with an energy at the hospital happened about a month and a half or so ago. I was delivering a tray. It was like 5 o'clock at night. I was going to the critical care unit. The units that have the plexiglass where you can see the people in there. And all of a sudden, as I'm dropping off the tray to the nurse's station, I had a horrible pain that shot across my stomach. And I felt like I was going to double over. I'm like, am I getting sick? I don't want to get sick. Well, at least I'm in a hospital. At least I can go downstairs to the emergency room. It won't be so bad. But I was like horrible. I get back to the elevator. I just broke out in a sweat. The sweat was pouring down my face. And I was hot. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? I had this rush of horrible energy. And then it was gone. And like 3 seconds later, it was just, the sweat was still there and everything else. I looked like I almost went through a swimming pool at that point because I was pouring sweat. And I got downstairs. And when I got downstairs, my manager saw me and he goes, I need you to bring this comfort tray upstairs to critical care because a gentleman just passed away. I'm like, I just felt his final moments, and I felt, and I get the tray. I'm like, oh, I gotta bring the tray back upstairs. I go to the nurse's station. I put the tray on the counter, and the gentleman was laying in bed, and his wife, and he had 2 other people because they only allow 3 people maximum, unfortunately, because of COVID and whatnot. And I actually saw his energy come up off of his body and go above his head and into a light right behind him. And I just saw it all happen at once. And I felt good that he was actually able to leave. And I don't know where his journey took him, but unfortunately. And I'm walking by the nurse's station. I go, listen, I know you can't say anything because of rules, but did something happen with his stomach that he passed? And she nodded and she goes, he had a complication from stomach surgery and he passed away from it. I'm like, oh my God, I felt his last moments, and then I saw him leave. That was the first time I ever saw an ascension at a hospital, and it just still brings my hair up on my arm just thinking about it now. It was only a short few weeks ago when that happened. Fast forward about a couple of weeks, and in the last couple of weeks, I have actually witnessed 3 more ascensions happen. I saw one person pass from an overdose down in the emergency room. I saw the spirit walk through a wall and just disappear. It was different every time. And then I saw one in the transitional care unit, which is where they keep the older folks when they are the long-term care people at the hospital. And I was actually doing a different job that night. I was actually delivering food to the kitchenettes, like all the snacks and the drinks and everything. And I'm putting the stuff into the refrigerator. I look over, and there's a gentleman wearing his blue flannel shirt sitting at the table. He looked over at me, and he disappeared. And they called Code Blue to TCU. And he had passed away literally like within a minute, because it was the same gentleman I had seen several times playing tic-tac-toe with the nurses and whatnot and so forth. And it's just truly amazing that I've been given a gift to be able to see these things. It's kind of dangerous when you're working in the place all the time and being turned on as much as I am, so I have to try to learn how to balance it back off just a little bit and turn it off. But I've been so open to trying to embrace all of my gifts, so to speak, because I just enjoy helping people, and I enjoy everything about what's going on in the spiritual universe. I just want to embrace all the good and try to help people through the bad, and that's where I'm at today. I feel very fortunate to be working in a place that I feel that I'm supposed to be, because I'm supposed to be there for their last moments. Maybe I'm just supposed to give them a little bit of recognition before they leave, because they don't have their family, or just in general, just because people can't see them. So, it's an amazing thing. I'm sure it's going to continue for I don't know how long, and hopefully I have some other stories along those lines. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer anything. I wanted to share all of my personal experiences, and I think it's a good thing to be able to come up here and share, because I'm not on television. I don't belong to any particular group. I didn't write any books. I didn't do any of those kind of things. I'm just a normal guy like everybody else who has been able to develop his gifts to be able to help people communicate with some of their loved ones that they haven't had a chance to possibly communicate to before, or if somebody wants to come through, they're able to just come and use me to be able to communicate where maybe they didn't have a voice to be able to do it beforehand. And it makes me feel good to be able to help people. So I'm glad to take any questions if anybody has anything that they want to ask about anything. Please, sir.
How old were you when you had your first experience, and what did you make of it at the time?
Like I told the S.K. Pierce Haunted Mansion 10 years ago, Danny, to be honest with you, I wasn't the kind of kid who had any imaginary friends or anything like that. My parents wouldn't have allowed any of that kind of stuff, You have your toys to play with, You have your Star Wars figures, and that's what you get to play with, I don't recall anything like that when I was growing up. I just have been able to develop my abilities ever since Gene and I went to our first paranormal investigation over 10 years ago. And whether or not you and I have been in an investigation together up in New Hampshire before, and it's I take this very passionately because the experiences I have, I've had them firsthand, and I use my dowsing rods and my pendulums as forms of communication because I don't like the electronic devices that a lot of people use. I feel like I am my own best instrument, and I feel that that's the truth for everybody. If you feel it and you want to talk to it, then talk to it. They may actually talk to you back. They may actually have a conversation. They might have something to say. I like just take a tape recorder, put it down on the table, and then go and play it back. You might actually get something. And I've seen it happen before. I watched it firsthand happen in Salem when we did an investigation with, I think John Zaffis was doing the investigation in one of the buildings, and all he used was an old school tape recorder, put it out in the thing, had everybody ask questions, and he actually got responses back. You don't need a ghost box or any of that kind of thing. They're fun tools to play with, and they're really cool, and they light up really cool, but I'm old school, and I really appreciate everybody here coming out and just sitting down and listening to me talk about my paranormal journey, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter and everything that it brings, and where we go next, and the new adventure that we go. Whether we went to Gettysburg this year, and you can hear the guns go off out in the battlefield. You can see the soldiers sitting there waiting for the targets to come in. If you pay attention to them and you want to engage with them. I'm so happy that I've been given the opportunity to be able to see the spirits, be able to talk to them. Those who want to talk. There are some that can't talk. There are some that don't want to talk. There are some that just want to be there, or they don't have the capability to communicate. And, that's pretty much how I view everything. And I really do appreciate each one of you guys coming out here and hearing me talk today. Oh, please, sir.
Sure. Yeah, I went to Gettysburg. I had to leave early because there was that storm, but
we drove right through the middle of that. So that
absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. So, what did you pick up? Was that your first time there, and did you pick up any? What did you think of it? What was your experience?
Actually, this year was our second year. We had actually gone 2 years previous to Gettysburg, and I had a couple of interactions with what I thought was spirits hanging out on the battlefield. The hanging bridge. I don't know if did you go to the hanging bridge?
Yeah.
I actually felt something around my neck tighten a little bit, and I was standing right in an area where somebody had been hung. I didn't realize that. I was told by some of the people who we were with that that's one of the areas where they had hung somebody. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm gonna tell another side story while I'm sitting here. Going back to the Murdoch Whitney mansion, but there's a house across the street that they keep all of their artifacts and like old toys from bygone time, with wooden toys and whatnot. Upstairs, we were sitting there doing a communication, and all of a sudden, I was trying to drink water, and my throat closed, and I had to spit the water out because I didn't know what was going on. And the guy was like, "You okay?" I go, "I feel like I'm being strangled because I can't swallow the water. I couldn't get the water down." He goes, "Oh, you're standing right there where somebody committed suicide by hanging himself on a rafter." I was like, "Oh my God!" I felt like I couldn't even swallow the water. It was so bad. I mean, that was where you feel like a negative energy. But I'm trying to focus more on trying to connect with the positive energies too. I mean, you can't take one without the other, unfortunately. But with Gettysburg, going back to Gettysburg, this year my wife and I went out and we took one of those guided tours and then they don't take you everywhere, so we just take the car back out and go drive around a little bit. And I actually saw a soldier kneeling down behind like one of the embankments. And I thought it was a statue, but it wasn't actually a statue because it disappeared afterwards. And I heard some gunshots go off of there. The amount of blood that's been spilled out there, the amount of energy that's out there is staggering. And I wish I could spend more time just engaging with the soldiers on the battlefield. I feel there's a lot of stories out there that they want told, that they just haven't told yet. You know, if I could ever help with that, I would love to help with that. So,
Can I have one more question? Is that all right?
please.
Your sensitivity to hanging, do you think that's been from a past life or anything? Has anybody ever asked?
I haven't, that's the one thing I haven't gotten quite into is past life regression. I'm interested in it, just to see if maybe I had some of these abilities previously and just don't know about it. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole yet, but I am very interested in what has happened in it previously. I'm figuring it has to be triggered from somewhere, going from just being skeptical and not even wanting anything to do with the paranormal universe to being able to communicate with spirits directly and having witnessing the ascensions in the hospitals and being clairvoyant and channeling energies on like the ship and stuff like that. I feel like it must come from somewhere, and one of these days when I actually get the courage, I want to sit down with somebody who can actually do a past life regression and see what takes place. It could be interesting.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, well, I really do appreciate it. Oh, please.
I have one more.
Absolutely. Anything.
So I was at the Quincy paranormal event recently. I think you were there too.
Which one was
Sam's
that?
So that was the
Yeah.
one,
The mass Paracon.
the Mass Paracon.
Okay, yes.
So we were outside, I don't know if you remember, we were
Oh.
outside with the Whitey Bulger, that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like, I thought it was you were like kind of unsettled during that. And I just don't know if you remember what was happening.
I actually had a smaller experience during that particular one. Thank you for reminding me, because sometimes they blend together. We were back in my favorite place, the CPO mess hall, which is where the officers eat their food. And my wife was there, and Amanda Cook from the GPPO was there. I channeled an energy, but I wasn't completely out of it. It actually wasn't strong enough to take complete control mentally, so it's like, I felt it, what was going on, and I could communicate back and forth, but I couldn't pull my hands off the table. My hands felt like they were super glued to the table. And I'm like, I need help. I physically can't pull my hands off of the table. It took two people to actually pull my hands from the table. The energy wanted to communicate, but it wasn't strong enough to be able to fully go in, so I could feel the anger. I could feel the confusion from it. But yeah, that was a very interesting Paracon that day. It was
Are you talking about what happened outside?
That's
Yeah,
what
the night
Yeah.
before, the Friday night.
The night before?
at the hotel.
At the Bridge, at the hotel.
Thank you.
Right.
I apologize. I went
No, that's
in
okay,
the wrong
I think I
direction.
remember that.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Oh yeah, when we were walking
They
around.
were trying to get the move her on.
Oh, well, they were talking about the young woman that
Yes,
they were
yes,
trying to
yeah.
communicate that they were trying to communicate with a young woman who had been murdered, right?
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
that's why you
And-
had the group.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, well, there's like a couple of male entities standing under the bridgeway,
Okay.
staring over, trying to get her not to say anything. Like they were very strong male energies, like staring a hole through her spirit.
Wow.
And I mean, thankfully, Sam and Sarah were able to
Yeah.
work with her. And because they were asking me, they were like, well, what's going on over there? I go, well, they're trying to control the situation. And they knew that, they saw that I knew that they were there, so they kind of just stayed off to the side, but where we were standing, the river was right behind,
Right,
right? I think it was right behind
Yeah.
them. And I could see her, and she was in distress and whatnot. And they were trying to give her a positive cone so that she could elevate herself. And the two males that were there were like, no, we don't want anything to have to do with this. We're gonna keep her here. Thankfully, they were able to elevate her, but, and they weren't able to hold her back. But that was very powerful too. You could actually feel the anger, just the negative energy was just awful between those guys. Quincy was really an amazing place, you know. Is there anybody else who would like to ask me questions? I appreciate anything, any feedback, anything.
Great job.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to end now because I didn't have anything else prepared, but thank you all for coming out and listening to me talk. I really, really appreciate every one of you. Thank you so much.